stuff. How do you approach that?
Yeah, Gene, the key of smart brevity, the magic there is that 9 times out of 10, the best experience for a reader is an efficient experience. We spend our time on the wrong words. If I'm communicating to you in an update, a memo, a newsletter, a news story, if I'm communicating to you sharply and efficiently, I'm giving you back time to read that one piece of content in 10 that's worthy of your time. We give you time to listen to that podcast, or read that New Yorker article, or read the Atlantic article that is worth your time. But most of our time we spend on things that could be said very quickly, and as the communicator, we have to fight that person who talks the most, who has the most power. So say less, be heard.
Good advice, clear and concise. So Jim Vandehei, let's get into one of your smart brief scoops this morning, and that is Mitch McConnell behind closed doors speaking to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on Monday, and according to you all, expressing some more confidence now in his hopes for the Senate. He had been, of course, publicly lamenting the quality of some of the candidates running in those important races. What did he say yesterday?
Yeah, he basically telling business leaders that he is a little more optimistic than he would have been 2 months ago. Make no mistake about it. Like, in private, he dogs a lot of the candidates that they ended up getting in states that he thinks they undoubtedly should be able to win. When you look at Pennsylvania or Georgia or Ohio or Arizona, he felt like, give me an electable candidate, I'm going to be the majority leader. What they are seeing, he's now getting back behind some of these candidates in Arizona and other places that he was skeptical of before. There's a new poll out by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that makes the Georgia race, which they were really worried about, look at least tight and potentially very winnable. They feel like they'll have enough money in these states to be competitive. But, you know, he's been frustrated for a decade. Like, there's so many times where he felt like he could have had either the majority or could have had a bigger majority if they would just stop electing people that really appeal to the base and not to the broader electorate. So he's kind of trying to do the best he can with the team he has. And when you're talking to business leaders at the chamber, they have cash, right? You want to make sure you're trying to get them optimistic, so they're giving you more money for that final run. But, you know, this is going to be a close race that probably in his mind shouldn't be close. They should have been able to win the majority. And now if you look at the map, he has reason to be pessimistic and maybe a little bit of reason to be more optimistic today than a month ago, but not much.
And he's going to hold his nose and fundraise for a bunch of those candidates he's been criticizing, because he does, of course, want to win back the Senate. The new book is titled Smart Brevity, The Power of Saying More with Less. Axios co-founders are good friends Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen. Great to see you. Congratulations on the book. Time now for a look at the morning papers. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution covers the latest on the state's 2 most-watched races leading up to November. A new AJC poll shows the state's Senate race is deadlocked, with Republican Herschel Walker leading Senator Raphael Warnock by 2% within the margin of error there. That same poll also shows incumbent Governor Brian Kemp with an 8-point lead over Democrat Stacey Abrams. In Wisconsin, the Green Bay Press-Gazette reports Governor Ron DeSantis is predicting Wisconsin will pass Florida-style laws on elections if Republican Tim Michels is elected governor in November. DeSantis made those comments at an event in Green Bay over the weekend. During the Republican primary race, Michels focused on the 2020 presidential election, but recently has been campaigning on the issues instead of crime and schools. In Rhode Island, the Westerly Sun reports federal authorities have seized more than 600,000 counterfeit Adderall pills containing methamphetamine. One man has agreed to plead guilty to possession with intent to distribute the fake pills that are valued at more than $4.5 million. This is believed to be the largest seizure of methamphetamine-laced fake Adderall pills in the United States. To Connecticut now, where the Middletown Press leads with a story about a food insecurity crisis in the state. New figures show 17% of adults in Connecticut have been unable to afford food at some point in the past year. That is the highest total for the state in the last 5 years. It comes amid a rise in inflation and the expiration of federal benefits. In Mississippi, the Clarion Ledger reports the capital city of Jackson finally now is seeing water clear of contaminants, thank goodness. A series of independent tests by the paper mirror the state's results and show no bacteria. Results reinforce the announcement from Governor Tate Reeves last Thursday that Jackson's boil water notice could, in fact, be lifted. Coming up on Morning Joe, from the office if you'd like, but I'd also like to hear about the book. Boy, is brevity in short supply these days, if you'll forgive the pun. We're bombarded with information, text, emails, social media all the time. People like to talk a lot sometimes on TV, it seems like. I don't know. So tell me about the book and why you think it's an important moment from it.
First off, your producers are genius and always very funny. That's an awesome scene from The Office. And this book was really made for people in the office, for people in the classroom. And what we've learned from creating Politico and creating Axios is how to get people to pay attention to what matters. And a couple years ago, we had a lot of companies, we had the NBA and others come to us and ask them if we could help them learn how to get people internally or their customers to pay attention to what they cared about. So we created this side company called Axios HQ, but it's built on this concept of smart brevity. How do you get people to pay attention to what matters? You think about how much the world has changed and how we're just deluged, inundated with information, and nobody's really taught anyone, if people have shorter attention spans and less time, how do you actually get people to pay attention to what matters? And that's what this book does. It allows us to share what we've benefited from seeing in the data, in the science, so that if you are a teacher, you are a student, you are a manager or aspiring leader, you can become a much more effective and efficient communicator.
And Mike, when your newsletter pops into the box a couple of times a day, always click, you get the headline, then you dig in a little bit, smart brevity, it's your mantra there at Axios. But how do you then get into the depth so it's not just that sort of passing cocktail party knowledge?
Yeah, thank you, Willie. A key point is short, not shallow. So what we have discovered is that a lot of times the words are because we're insecure. People are faking it on everything, and one of the ways that we fake it is too many words. And when you try and disguise the fact that we don't have a good strategy, a sharp idea, maybe a new idea, the magic of smart brevity is in the book, which a lot of great businesses at smartbrevity.com can get you that book instantly. It shows you step by step how to isolate your idea and just say it. That's the magic. I came up as a political reporter in newspapers. We were paid to write words. The more words that we wrote, the better play we got for our stories. The more words you wrote, maybe you were going to get a prize. It was all about the reporter or the publisher. And what we're saying with smart brevity is whether you are an intern trying to talk to your boss, whether you're someone who leads a team, whether you're a teacher, that think about the audience. Think about the person who's receiving it. What is the one thing that you want them to remember? Because, Willie, you think about any show, any podcast, any sermon, any article, any piece of content. If we come away with that with one good idea, one thing to remember, that's a win. And smart brevity leans into that. It says, yes, gravity is real. People have best are going to remember one thing we're going to say. Here's how to say it sharply, clearly, muscularly, memorably.
Hey, Jim, let's make this quick. You list 5 things to make people a more effective communicator. What are they? What are the 5 things?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things you can do, but like one is just sit down and distill your thought into like what is the one thing you hope to get people to stick? Like that one thing will clarify how you write. Then write it in as few words as possible. Write it in your own voice. That is the biggest mistake communicators make. For some reason, whenever we get behind a keyboard or a typewriter, all of a sudden we like get starch in our shirt and we start to throw out SAT words or acronyms. Speak like a human. And then be respectful of people's time. Understand that you're not the audience, they're the audience, and that the average person spends at best 18 to 20 seconds on a piece of content. So you have to grab them by the lapel, say this is what's important, this is why it matters, make sure you have a hierarchy of the most important information at the top, and then they'll want to listen to you, they'll want to hear from you. It's so interesting. Stuart Butterfield, I was watching him on stage not long ago, and he's the CEO of Slack, and he was saying any business leader, manager probably spends 70% of their time communicating, and yet nobody teaches you how to communicate better. And that's what we hope to do with this book.
May your blades never dull.
What is this that's playing in the background over and over again? Okay, are you ready for some,
Jay.
Jon
some
Stewart's better.
crazy righteous outrage?
Jay, I am ready for that.
Okay, Takara, take it away.
Thank
Wait,
you,
you
Jay.
can't pass the ball. You can't.
That's an assist.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Takara,
Absolutely.
what's going on? What's the matter? What's going on?
I've got some news straight out of my home state, the Sunshine State. What's up, 727? Represent.
What?
Okay.
Track B's,
Ron
who the fuck
DeSantis.
cares?
Yes.
In a bid to own the libs and step out of Trump's shadow, decided to trick some asylum seekers
Oh, yes.
into getting on a plane and going to Martha's Vineyard. We have to talk about it.
I'm happy to do so. What is now here? The first thing I thought was, after Labor Day, it's really just working class people
100%.
trying to fix the damage that's been done over the summer season.
That's what Takara said. Takara said, do you want to bother fishermen? You want
Why
to
are you
bother
doing this?
off-season summer staff?
It's fishermen and craftspeople,
Yeah.
basically.
So the population is over the summer is like over 100,000. But then off season, it shrinks to 20,000 people who are literally trying to fix their beaches, get
That's
their
right.
wares together, go out and fish.
But maybe that's DeSantis' point.
Absolutely.
Maybe there's a lot of vacancies up there, and he's thinking, well, I'll send some people up there. Clearly, the island has room now.
Oh,
During
yes.
the season, it doesn't.
Well, the craziest part about this is, technically, did he human traffic these people? These people, not these like faceless brown masses. Did each
Right.
one of these individuals get coerced to go on a plane from Texas to Florida to the Carolinas to Martha's Vineyard? That's
Look, not
crazy.
for nothing. Martha's Vineyard's pretty nice. Like, I'm assuming that if they were in a thing, even if they're look, isn't the larger point this? We don't have a functioning system for people who are either immigrating or seeking asylum. And so in the chaos of that system, I understand he doesn't have the empathy or compassion that these are human beings and that their lives are already chaotic and turned upside down. And he doesn't really give a fuck whether or not, it's a wonderful stunt. As far as he's concerned, it's like when a mayor loses a bet to another mayor and has to send him 50 pounds of sausage. He couldn't even care less about these lives. But unfortunately, the underlying principle of this, the chaos of the American immigration system, is absolutely a disgrace.
Absolutely. And I think we could acknowledge that,
Yes.
but not doing like reverse freedom rides. Like this is the height of the 1960s.
No, you're right. But what are the people we supposedly believe are doing this right? How are they treating these immigrants?
And I think the big difference with this case, though, is the memification, the gotcha aspect
Oh,
of
yeah.
it.
Well,
Owning
that's
the
all-
libs.
It's someone who really wants this to go viral. Whenever policy is just you trolling people, then we've like entered territory where they're trying to get the attention from the big fish, who is Trump. It's a new level of kind of like incompetence at the political level, at the state level, especially for a place like Florida, who definitely has like rules in place for how to deal with immigration. And these were people who were in Texas. That's the other thing.
Oh, yeah, that I never even understood.
It went Texas, Panhandle, then the Carolinas. I don't want to make this racial again, but the country has a history of putting non-white people on vessels and going, yeah, it'll be fun when you get wherever you're
Now,
headed.
Oh my God. Yes,
I'm
this all
sorry.
started with slave labor.
That was
Turn
not
with
allowed.
me to your textbooks.
That was not allowed to be taught at my school, so I don't even know what you're talking about. If that's that CRT, I don't want any part of it. Well, it's very obvious at this point that the path to Republican power lies in dickishness. And I don't know that there is a political platform or an ideology other than dickishness. And, this stunt did exactly what he wanted it to do, which is jumped his profile, made him a hero amongst those for whom dickishness is one of the sole characteristics that they're looking for in their leaders. It probably angered Trump, because nobody's going to be a bigger dick than me. Like, this is going to be, imagine the season that we're in, where they are trying to one-up each other in utter cruelty. And that's going to be the thing. And this country does a shitty job of taking care of the people that are already here. So there is a much larger issue here of cooperation and consideration. Clearly, though, can't we have a sane immigration policy that doesn't rely on the demonization?
Yeah.
Like, is that really beyond our grasp?
And the kind of subterfuge and the coercion aspect of it. If you are actively coercing people, then you've put yourself in legal peril. You have this dishonest system. So you're taking advantage of something that's already broken instead of trying to fix it. That's right. The weird part.
Jay, what's easier? Is it easier to govern and solve problems, or is it easier to meme?
Well, I mean,
it's easier to meme.
Everyone wants to go viral.
Absolutely.
Now that's what we're talking about.
Jay made a great point. It's the memification of politics. I mean, they gave Fox News the heads up, but didn't notify any local officials. So talk to me about that.
Because they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck.
But they give a fuck in the way that
this
they go,
is
did I
about
get
their
eyes?
brand.
Yeah, did I get eyes on it?
That's
did
right.
people see this happen?
The brand is this. What's the brand now about? Their brand is they found groups of people that they can demonize and that their base gets excited about. And so it's all about finding a way to amplify their brand at the expense of real people and real problems that are solvable.
Yes.
Solvable.
Or at least you could have a discussion concerning these things. They would end up...
No.
Well,
Democrats want open borders, and they want to teach your children about analingus. That's what they want. They want open borders and analingus.
Well, John, if you're talking about the southern border being open, analingus,
yikes!
we've kind of walked into that.
Well, Jay, you did it.
I said it. It's very early. It's
fair play to Jay
Jordan. It's after 12. It's after 12. We can discuss.
Is it though? Do you have any confidence that this? So now what you're going to have is a moment of media attention, unless the Queen dies again next week. And she may. We don't know how long that's going to go. But so you have a moment of attention. In that moment, isn't that an opportunity? An opportunity to bring a sane conversation or policy to this, rather than just all they're covering is the showbiz aspect of it.
John, in 2004, yes. Post 2016, no.
What you just said, John, like, that doesn't sound interesting. I don't want sanity. I don't want wisdom. I want great ratings.
John, we can't retweet what you just said.
Exactly. That's not tweetable at all. Abbott got 300 plus segments on Fox News just talking about this busing stunt. You know
how
what that?
Many?
Over 300 segments on Fox.
Do you understand how many catheters he sold, John? You need to get your shit together.
So they're like, oh, that's going to move some units on some catheters. We can't talk about.
Sunsetter awnings. We have so many products that we're so happy to display.
I am so sorry that you guys have to watch that. that you actually know the brands that are going on there. Do you have any hope that some of this, in its, there's that initial pop and like you owned them and you fucking got them, but that there will be some consideration when the dust settles of, oh, these are human beings and we are failing in this system.
The saving grace of all of this is that Greg Abbott, Ron DeSantis, they're all auditioning for second. Like, when Big Daddy comes home, you're going to have to get out of his lazy boy and get him the big piece of chicken the minute.
So this is all in fealty to the new Trump mandate of
100%. And John,
showbiz and dickishness.
Even Trump came out and said that Ron DeSantis stole his idea. So now you have tweets going up being like, DeSantis is trying to beat Trump. So it's
wait,
happening already.
These guys are like fucking comics.
That's what I was
now.
gonna say.
So now
We're all
it's all
comics.
about like this. Hey, this guy, this Carlos Mencia, this Dan Cook, they're stealing my shit. They're stealing my essence.
John, okay, I'm not pointing fingers, but tell me if this sounds familiar. Just tell,
Yes.
okay, just tell me if someone's done this before, please.
Yes. Oh God.
And I'm like, yeah, you know who did it? The Amsterdam Trading Company in 1619. That's who did it.
Snap.
Another
You're
hot
going.
one.
Yeah, that is another.
Oh,
Hot.
that's okay.
So
Well,
you're throwing this back to this is just a continuation, and now look at us bringing it all together with the Queen's funeral. This is just colonization and exploitation and all those and all the aspects of what is ultimately the exploitation of resources
Absolutely.
that aren't yours. Boom. It all ties together.
And a lack of accountability as well.
There is no accountability.
well, as a layperson, as just a civilian who doesn't have any political power, who has no connections to like white collar society, you go, oh, they're going to jail. And then the second time something drops, you go, they have them. But by the third time you see Trump on the news being indicted for something, just as a viewer, you go, I've become numb to this word.
There doesn't seem to be any clear, fair application of the law when you have political power and resources.
One extra damage ahead. Fear me. One point nexus. Smash. Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent.
Breaking news in the case against Donald Trump. A brand new court filing from the former president's lawyers just hit the docket. In it, the Trump legal team asked to keep in place a stop on the Justice Department investigation of those documents seized from an FBI search warrant served at Mar-a-Lago. The Trump lawyers call the DOJ probe, quote, misguided. And they argue the Justice Department hasn't proven that any of those documents taken from his Mar-a-Lago home are indeed classified. CNN's Evan Perez has more on this new response. Former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams is also with us. This filing just made with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. What's the big headline?
Well, the headline here, John, is that the former president is arguing that keeping this order from a lower court judge that prevents the Justice Department from continuing to investigate these documents, particularly the 100 or so classified documents that were seized from Mar-a-Lago. He's saying that keeping that stay in process, that prohibition against the government, is a sensible preliminary step toward restoring order from chaos. He's saying that the government should not be allowed to investigate these documents while the special master process is ongoing. And then he comes with this argument, which is that the government has not proven that the documents in question are actually classified. He says that the government is assuming, without either side presenting proof, that these documents are classified. That's from the filing. And of course, the irony here being that the former president has not actually even claimed that he declassified these documents, at least not in court. He said this on his social media platform. He said it in TV interviews, but he's not actually said this in court. But right now, the ambiguity of this, he's saying is the government's fault, essentially, because they haven't actually proven that the documents are classified.
Haven't actually proven in the view of the Trump lawyers, Elliot Williams. We saw the photo released by the FBI in a previous court filing that showed the stamps on so many of those documents.
The documents are clearly stamped, and there's a really good chance that if they were declassified at the point at which Donald Trump had them in his possession, his own government, his own Justice Department was the entity, or FBI or whomever else, that classified these documents, number one. Number two, it simply does not matter for the various statutes that the Justice Department's looking into here, whether these documents are classified or not. And people should burn that into their heads, John, that if we're talking about obstruction of justice or mishandling defense information or mutilating or removing documents, which are the three crimes that we at least know for now the Justice Department is looking into, it doesn't matter whether they're declassified or not. So I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors.
Not to mention, real quick, one of the possible crimes that the Justice Department is investigating is whether Donald Trump disobeyed a subpoena, right? He got a subpoena in May for him to turn over documents that are marked as classified. According to the FBI, by the fact that they got these documents when they went there in August, he disobeyed that subpoena. That is not answered in these documents.
Right, I was looking quickly through this, and not a lawyer, but they say they're trying to make a distinction between presidential records and personal records, saying Donald Trump has every right to take personal records with him. This document seems to ignore the months and months and months of negotiations where Trump's lawyers conceded in back and forth with the government that there was a legitimate dispute over what should be returned.
And moreover, a lot of those, pretty much anything that's not a personal record, a purely personal record, set aside this classification argument, they are government records that by law would belong in the custody of the National Archives and Records Administration. I think we're getting bogged down in this classified versus declassified versus SCI versus all that sort of mumbo jumbo acronyms. The simple fact is they belong to the government by law. And when you walk out of the government, the law says they have to belong there, even if you're a former president.
Stay with us, because this is complicated, and jump in if I say anything that's not entirely correct according to the law. But this brief filed with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the Justice Department appealing a federal judge in Florida's decision to stop the process. As this appeal goes forward, that Florida judge did name a special master to look through an independent party, to look through the masters. Just a while from now, about 2 hours from now, Trump lawyers in the Justice Department will meet inside a New York courtroom with that special master, Judge Raymond Dearie. Today, that judge and the lawyers are supposed to plot a roadmap on how to proceed. Again, that appeal is pending, but until you hear from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the special master has this case. Last night, another Trump legal filing put on the record and in writing the stakes facing the former president. His lawyers say they're hesitant in a legal filing to back up Trump's claim, his public claim, that he declassified boxes of the material. Their reason, that might be a possible defense they would use should the Justice Department indict the former president. CNN's Kara Scannell is outside the courtroom in New York where this will play out. Kara, what do we expect?
Well, John, as you say, the special master in this case, Judge Raymond Dearie, is holding the first public hearing over this matter. And on the agenda is how they are going to go through 11,000 documents by the November 30th deadline set by the judge in Florida. Now, Judge Dearie was appointed to the bench by Ronald Reagan. He's been serving for more than 35 years, and he has a very well-regarded reputation amongst the public defenders, amongst federal prosecutors I've spoken to. In fact, the atrium in the courthouse behind me is named after the judge, Judge Raymond Dearie. That's the kind of respect that he has among this community. So he's setting the table today saying, okay, let's figure out the agenda, how we're going to go through this. He was also Trump's pick for special master that the Justice Department did not object to, but the Trump team is already finding some issues with some of the ideas that he's put forward. The judge, Raymond Dearie, saying we should go through this categorizing these documents. What is personal? What is presidential? What is privileged? By October 7th, Trump's team saying we might want to push back these deadlines and have more time. Now, in addition, this issue of classification, Judge Dearie, the special master, hitting that right on the head, saying he wants specific information from the Trump team about declassification. declassification. Now, Trump's lawyers saying in their filing last night that this is premature, that they, in fact, don't want to say anything about it because it could go to a possible defense if there is an indictment down the road. So we expect these issues to come to a head in the hearing. Now, the Department of Justice in their filing pushing for a quick move on this, saying they want to go through 500 pages a day, and they're hoping to have weekly review sessions with the judge to try to keep this on track. John?
Harris Cadell outside the courtroom in New York. Kara, thanks. Keep us posted as things develop later today. Let's come back to the table with Evan Perez and Elliot Williams. Elliot, from a lawyer perspective first, just explain to the viewer who might not be following this on an hourly basis like we do, that you have an appeal to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, but this is essentially, until that is decided, full speed ahead before Judge Deary.
Right. The 11th Circuit where I was a law clerk, can step in and put the whole proceedings, the entire proceedings on hold and say, you know what? We've got this now. Please don't move forward. Until that point, this is with the court that's hearing it, and I think Judge Deary is proceeding as well he should, proceeding as if nothing's been put on hold.
And as that plays out, again, I want to read. Kara just mentioned this. Trump publicly has said he declassified these documents. His lawyers have never argued, including in this latest court filing, they have never argued on an official legal document where they are bound by oath that he declassified the documents. Judge Deary says, prove it. Prove it. It's a key issue in this case. Please show me the evidence. As I review these documents, prove to me that I should defer to Donald Trump and say he deferred these. Trump's legal team says the draft plan requires the plaintiff to disclose specific information regarding declassification to the court and to the government. The special master process will force the plaintiff to fully and specifically disclose a defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment without such a requirement being in the district court order. The Trump team essentially saying no. Now what happens?
Right. They want the ambiguity of this. Ambiguity, by the way, which they alone are creating, right? Because the government isn't even saying necessarily that, they're arguing that these are the documents that are marked as classified and that is the violation they're investigating. So the former president is trying to have it both ways. He's trying to say, look, we're not going to say whether these are classified or not because that might be our defense at a later point if he gets indicted. But at the same time, they want this special master to set aside these documents and to essentially rule what is.
Hurry up, get the cooldown ticking so I can move on.
In fact, they're not declassified, and they put that in a court filing that they were. That's lying to the court. Like you even use the words under oath, John. Not even filing it to the court, making that statement to a federal officer would itself be a crime. And so they have to be maybe they're declassified. I don't know. But all signs seem to suggest that they're not. And
another Trump lawyer in a previous assertion to the Justice Department, another Trump lawyer had written in a letter that all the classified materials had been returned.
Right.
Then you saw in the search warrant that according to the government and according to your eyes, those photographs, they had not. So they're sort of in a box.
They cannot legally write in a court filing that these documents are declassified because there's even more trouble than they already might be in if they go there.
Nukta. Go forth to victory. Talk to me. Bye-bye now.
Works for now.
Blood and thunder. Go forth to victory.
How are you? Okie dokie.
I'm tracking beast. Not really. My dodge chance is huge for no fucking reason at all.
Former President Donald Trump like a king. The vice chair of the January 6th committee receiving a standing ovation Monday night after she recounted a story about an unnamed House Republican colleague who mocked Mr. Trump, calling him, quote, the Orange Jesus.
Bit by bit, excuse by excuse, we're putting Donald Trump above the law. We are rendering indefensible conduct normal, legal, and appropriate, as though he were a king. You know, in the cloakroom on January 6th, before the attack happened, there were so many who wanted to show they were objecting that they'd set up these sign-up sheets in the cloakroom. And as I was sitting there, a member came in and he signed his name on each one of the state's sheets. And then he said under his breath, the things we do for the Orange Jesus.
And in just over an hour, the special master appointed to the Trump investigation convenes his first hearing concerning those classified documents retrieved from Mar-a-Lago. At least
settlement offer.
New York Attorney General Letitia James has reportedly rejected an offer from former President Trump to settle a civil investigation into his real estate business.
Oh, God.
The New York Times reports that might increase the chances of a potential lawsuit. The AG is also reportedly considering suing at least one of the former president's children.
Means they don't.
The investigation
Means they're not suing you for fucking monetary recompensance. Means they want to take everything you have and put you in prison. That's what's going to happen to that guy.
What is the likelihood now that the New York Attorney General files a lawsuit in this case?
I think it's fairly likely. I mean, we've been watching this investigation develop. If you remember, there were parallel investigations, the Attorney General along with the Manhattan District Attorney, and we saw the Manhattan District Attorney's investigation lag, but the Attorney General's investigation seems to be ongoing and to be gaining steam. Now that it seems that she's rejected a settlement, it seems fairly likely that at some point we'll see some sort of lawsuit.
When you hear about this reported tidbit in the negotiations about possibly looking into Trump's children, what does that tell you?
Well, you know, I think this was somewhat expected in that this is a business that's family run. It's very closely held, and the children are very involved in the day-to-day business. And the investigation has looked into, as you said, this question of whether or not there was an inflating or deflating, a manipulation of the value of assets in order to gain certain advantages with banks, insurers, and regulators. And so, you know, to the extent that the children were involved, it's unsurprising to see that they will be maybe a part of this lawsuit.
For those who aren't lawyers, help us understand what it would mean for a state attorney general to sue someone on a business matter. It's not a typical thing you hear about in terms of prosecution.
Right. No, it's not a criminal prosecution. And in New York, the state attorney general has, for the most part, jurisdiction over civil cases. There are some criminal cases that the attorney general controls, but for the most part, those are taken care of by local district attorneys. So the kinds of cases that attorney general would be involved in as opposed to a private party involve the public as a whole. And this case in which there might be harm to the public, but it's still a civil case, are exactly the kind of case that she would pursue in order to protect the financial markets in New York and ensure that everybody has a fair shot and that people aren't being swindled essentially out of money and assets.
And let's say she moves forward with a lawsuit. How does that play out in terms of a court proceeding?
Well, it would play out like almost any other. You know, there has been an investigation that is somewhat different because in a private lawsuit, obviously, there's, there are only separate parties and somebody would bring a complaint. But once she's completed her investigation, it would proceed just like a case, any other case. So there would be a complaint, there would be discovery in which each side seeks to develop its case and look at the case that the other side has, build its best argument, and then again, perhaps there would be more settlement negotiations, but if not, this would go to trial.
And in the way these usually work, do you expect the Trump team to potentially continue to try to settle this? Are these legal situations that are often settled before they get to court?
Oh, quite frequently they are, but in this situation, I'm not exactly sure because it is a little bit different and it's so much more high profile. And I think the Attorney General has been developing this case and developing the evidence for so long that she will be somewhat reluctant to settle for anything less than a fairly severe consequence for the organization and for those individuals. So the question is whether or not that would be something that the Trump family and the Trump organization would be willing to stomach in order to avoid having to go forward in this case.
Interesting, politically and legally. Rebecca Royfee, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey there, BC.
Need my green Daisy Dukes.
Campaign slogans have to be memorable.
Before I watch that, Sam.
It's your boy Jon Stewart. We got season 2 of The Problem with Jon Stewart on Apple TV+. I am so excited. We got so many great topics. Gender, taxes, globalization, elections, the Knicks, The Bachelorette. We're covering everything this year. I want you to watch. Anyway, hold on just 1 second. Yeah.
Welcome to Arby's. Can I take your order?
Yeah, how are you? Jon Stewart here. Just wanted to let you know again, never eating here. Never eating here!
Hey, John.
It's important to keep relationships going.
Fucking Jon
What are you
Stewart.
doing to people? Anyway, October 7th. See you then.
This video.
Mr. Speaker, if 90% of success in life is just showing up, then 90% of acting in contempt of Congress is not showing up by failing to respond to multiple subpoenas you have been lawfully served. The rest of contempt is not turning over documents you have been ordered to produce and acting with open disregard and scorn for the rule of law, Congress, and representatives of the American people. Neither Dan Scavino nor Peter Navarro has shown up in response to repeated congressional subpoenas. They have blown us off completely. Neither Mr. Scavino nor Mr. Navarro has produced a single document or offered 1 minute of testimony in response to the subpoenas sent by the House of Representatives. We were going to have a 9/11 style independent commission, and then you know what happened? You know who vetoed it? The fourth branch of government, Donald Trump, who some of their members slavishly report to, like sycophants. And Donald Trump said he didn't want any investigation into the attack on this body, the Congress of the United States. He didn't want any investigation at all. And you know what the minority leader did? He walked it back. They pulled the plug on the independent commission. And that's why we ended up with the January 6th Select Committee in the House of Representatives, which the Speaker has made sure is bipartisan and has operated, in my experience, Mr. Speaker, as the most bipartisan committee I've ever been on. Why? Because we don't spend an hour at the beginning of each meeting with a bunch of empty partisan gimmicks and stunts, the kind we just saw wasting the taxpayers' money and time. The general lady, I think, said something about the Russian hoax or Russian collusion. I accept the heckling, Mr. Speaker. That's all right. Because if she wants to continue to stand with Vladimir Putin and his brutal, bloody invasion against the people of Ukraine, she is free to do so. And we understand there is a strong Trump-Putin axis in the general lady's party. She wants to continue to stand with Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. That is her prerogative. But please do it on your own time, forthwith.
And that's probably the moment that Marjorie Taylor Greene recognized that she shouldn't punch above her weight, which, to be fair, includes just about everyone but especially Jamie Raskin. Here, the House was debating whether to pass a resolution.
Joey
holding
Tory the
both
Green
Trump
is a
advisors-
fucking moron.
A Texas sheriff has opened an investigation.
Jewish
into how
space
48
lasers.
Venezuelan migrants, legal, were flown from his state to Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. He says they were taken there under false pretenses, exploited, and hoodwinked, in his words.
And now Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is defending the transport of those migrants after taking credit for the flights. Let's go back to our CNN correspondent, Gloria Paz.
That's one extra bag.
Claims that sheriff
Always forget about that on Hunters.
investigation that this was done for a photo op. He's actually also alleging that local laws were potentially broken, even potentially federal laws. Can you explain that?
Yeah, Poppy. Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar talked about this yesterday, announcing this investigation. He said that people lured these migrants in San Antonio, eventually to Florida, and then to Martha's Vineyard. That's how he believes some of these people ended up there. He said yesterday that he is opening up an investigation into exactly what went on here, investigating possible criminality attached to all of this. He was also very critical of the people he believes were allegedly involved
You
in
better
all
bow,
of this,
bro.
saying he believes they took advantage of these migrants who were here desperately looking for help, and all of this will be considered as he opens up that investigation. Listen to the sheriff describing what he believes went on here.
I believe that they were preyed upon. Somebody came from out of state, preyed upon these people, lured them with promises of a better life, which is what they were absolutely looking for, and hoodwinked into making this trip to Florida and then onward to Martha's Vineyard.
I don't know why I bought all that. There was no point.
Now, just for context here, we should mention that Sheriff Salazar is a Democrat, and he was actually asked about that yesterday, about the political dynamics of all of this. He clarified that he's actually not on the ballot, and he said that this was really just an issue of right and wrong, an issue that has put human beings in the middle, and he accused...
Wow, have to go to Oregon to learn those. That sucks.
Points. To that end, a spokesperson for Governor Ron DeSantis has now issued a response saying, quote, immigrants have been more than willing to leave Bexar County after being abandoned, homeless, and left to fend for themselves. Florida gave them an opportunity to seek greener pastures in a sanctuary jurisdiction that offered greater resources for them, as we expected. Of course, we know from the reporting that not everyone who went to Martha's Vineyard actually even knew where they were going. So this idea that people gave consent or knew what they were doing is, of course, going to be a part of the investigation going forward. Poppy, Jen.
Gloria, thank you so much, Gloria Pezmina, for explaining that to our viewers. Let's talk more about this with Alana Treen, congressional reporter for Axios. Good morning. Good to have you. Let's just take a moment to listen to Governor DeSantis and then a few facts on the other side.
They all signed consent forms to go, and then the vendor that is doing this for Florida provided them with a packet that had a map of Martha's Vineyard. It had the numbers for different services on Martha's Vineyard. So it was clearly voluntary, and all the other nonsense you're hearing is just not true. And why wouldn't they want to go, given where they were?
So, Alana, just a few facts that are being alleged by the attorneys for some of these migrants, including the fact that they say that their clients were misled by being told that there would be cash, housing, work opportunities, travel assistance on the other side when they arrived there. Also, failing to mention that these benefits are things that are guaranteed to refugees that get refugee status outside the U.S., not asylum seekers who come here seeking asylum before a judge. And also these pamphlets saying that they were from the Office of Refugee and Immigrants that listed that phone number. That office says they don't make these pamphlets. So now the question is, who's telling the truth here?
No, I think you're exactly right, Poppy. And Axios as well spoke with many of the lawyers who were helping represent some of the migrants that were transferred to Martha's Vineyard, and they told us that a lot of these people were misled. Some of them thought they were going to Boston, some thought they were going to New York City, and were offered up to 8 months of cash assistance and other things that they thought they'd be getting, and they didn't. So there's a lot of
Sure, whatever, I don't care.
between what Governor DeSantis is saying and what the representatives and these migrants are saying as well. And I think that investigation is going to try to figure that out. And it's very problematic. I mean, I spoke with many lawmakers on Capitol Hill, many of who represent Florida.
Yeah, I want another souvenir over there. Okay, that's all I care about.
What they've seen, in their words, Governor Greg Abbott and Governor Ducey in Arizona, they said that the idea of not telling these people where they're going, not asking them if they wanted to go, is really the difference between what Governor DeSantis did and some of the other governors.
Well, listen, we know, at least some of them are saying they didn't know where they were going. And by the way, we've all signed consent forms before, right, without reading them. I just have to imagine if there's a practical implication here as well. How many times have you clicked on I agree without knowing what the fine print says? I do want to ask you about the politics here. Do we have any indication? Listen, from a political there's a law, set that aside for a moment. From a political standpoint, this is putting into the public eye an issue that Republicans see to their advantage in the midterms that have been trying to keep in the public eye for some time as the numbers have gone up. Is there any data to indicate at this point whether this is a winning issue for Republican lawmakers?
Haven't seen any data yet. I'm sure there's a
The
lot
longest part is getting started.
But I think, it's a very messy and dangerous road that Governor DeSantis went down, because you're right. At one point, I did speak with people like Senator Marco Rubio, Senator John Cornyn from Florida and Texas, respectively.
Skinning is where? There.
It's a terrific idea to thrust this issue back into
Bet while they're working in the same building?
Rubio saying, it's not the burden of these different cities and states, it's the burden of the Biden administration and the federal government. But also, I mean, if you look at Florida in particular, I think, and my colleagues spoke with some people in Florida as well, a lot of Venezuelans.
God, that's so fucking random looking.
Placed now in Florida, really
Green helmet, brutal gladiator's great sword.
Furious, really, with what Governor DeSantis did, and that's a key voting block that I know Republicans across the country have tried to core and could be very dangerous for Governor DeSantis.
That's the definition of somebody who wants welfare epics.
Many of these, if not all of these, migrants who were
That's all they have is welfare epics. Everything else is greens, like questing greens.
Elena Treen, thanks so much. Breaking news in the case against Donald Trump. A brand new court filing from the former president's lawyers just hit the docket. In it, the Trump legal team asked to keep in place a stop on the Justice Department investigation of those documents seized from an FBI search warrant served at Mar-a-Lago. The Trump lawyers called the DOJ probe, quote, misguided. And they argue the Justice Department hasn't proven that any of those documents taken from his Mar-a-Lago home are indeed classified. CNN's Evan Perez has more on this new response. Former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams is also with us. This filing just made with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. What's the big headline?
Well, the headline is that the former president is arguing that keeping this order from a lower court judge that prevents the Justice Department from continuing
While
to
I'm here,
investigate
where's the
these,
weapon trainer?
Documents, particularly the 100 or so classified documents that were seized from Mar-a-Lago. He's saying that keeping that stay in process, that prohibition against the government, is a sensible preliminary step toward restoring order from chaos. He's saying that the government should not be allowed to investigate these documents.
Hey, look, a Marine.
While the special master process is ongoing. And then he comes with this argument, which is that the government has not proven that the documents in question are actually classified. It says that the government is assuming, without either side presenting proof, that these documents are classified. That's from the filing. And of course, the irony here being that the former president has not actually even claimed that he declassified these documents, at least not in court. He said this on his social media platform. He said it in TV interviews. But he's not actually said this in court. But right now, the ambiguity of this, he's saying, is the government's fault, essentially, because they haven't actually proven that the documents are classified.
Haven't actually proven in the view of the Trump lawyers.
Please don't aggro me. I just want to move on out of here. Oh, God damn it. It's got my other trainer.
The documents are clearly stamped, and there's a really good chance that if they were declassified at the point at which Donald Trump had them in his possession, his own government his own Justice Department was the entity, or FBI or whomever else, that classified these documents, number one. Number two, it simply does not matter for the various statutes that the Justice Department's looking into here, whether these documents are classified or not. And people should burn that into their heads, John, that if we're talking about obstruction of justice or mishandling defense information or mutilating or removing documents, which are the three crimes that we at least know for now the Justice Department is looking into, it doesn't matter whether they're declassified.
Please hurry and kill that thing so I can go get my other shit.
Not to mention, real quick, one of the possible crimes that the Justice Department is investigating is whether Donald Trump disobeyed a subpoena, right? He got a subpoena in May for him to turn over documents that are marked as classified. According to the FBI, by the fact that they got these documents when they were in August, he disobeyed that subpoena. That is not answered in these documents.
Right, I was looking quickly through this, and not a lawyer, but they say they're trying to make a distinction between presidential records and personal records, saying Donald Trump has every right to take personal records with him. This document seems to ignore the months and months of negotiations where Trump's lawyers conceded in back and forth with the government that there was legitimate dispute over what should be returned.
And moreover, a lot of those, pretty much anything that's not a personal record, a purely personal record, set aside this classification argument, they are government records that by law would belong in the custody of the National Archives and Records Administration. Like, I mean, I think we're getting bogged down in this classified versus declassified versus SCI versus all that sort of mumbo jumbo acronyms. The simple fact is they belong to the government by law.
Fucking thrall running around back here. Holy shit.
The law says they have to belong there, even if you're a former president.
Stay with us because this is complicated, and jump in if I say anything that's not entirely correct according to the law. But this brief filed with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the Justice Department appealing a federal judge in Florida's decision to stop the process. As this appeal goes forward, that Florida judge did name a special master to look through an independent party, to look through the masters. Just a while from now, about 2 hours from now, Trump lawyers in the Justice Department will meet inside a New York courtroom with that special master, Judge Raymond Dearie. Today, that judge and the lawyers are supposed to plot a roadmap on how to proceed. Again, that appeal is pending, but until you hear from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the special master has this case. Last night, another Trump legal filing put on the record and in writing the stakes facing the former president. His lawyers say they're hesitant in a legal filing to back up Trump's claim, his public claim, that he declassified boxes of the material. Their reason, that might be a possible defense they would use.
You weren't 10 seconds ago, asshole.
Kara Scannell is outside the courtroom in New York where this will play out. Kara, what do we expect?
Well, John, as you say, the special master in this case, Judge Raymond Dearie, is holding the first public hearing over this matter. And on the agenda is how they are going to go through 11,000 documents by the November 30th deadline set by the judge in Florida. Now, Judge Dearie was appointed to the bench by Ronald Reagan. He's been serving for more than 35 years, and he has a very well-regarded reputation amongst the public defenders, amongst federal prosecutors I've spoken to. In fact, the atrium in the courthouse behind me is named after the judge, Judge Raymond Dearie. That's the kind of respect that he has among this community. So he's setting the table today saying, okay, let's figure out the agenda, how we're going to go through this. He was also Trump's pick for special master that the Justice Department did not object to, but the Trump team is already finding some issues with some of the ideas that he's put forward. The judge, Raymond Dearie, saying we should go through this categorizing these documents. What is personal? What is presidential? What is privileged? By October 7th, Trump's team saying we might want to push back these deadlines and have more time. Now, in addition, this issue of classification, Judge Dearie, the special master, hitting that right on the head, saying he wants specific information from the Trump team about declassification. Now, Trump's lawyers saying in their filing last night that this is premature, that they, in fact, don't want to say anything about it because it could go to a possible defense if there is an indictment down the road. So we expect these issues to come to a head in the hearing. Now, the Department of Justice in their filing pushing for a quick move on this, saying they want to go through 500 pages a day, and they're hoping to have weekly review sessions with the judge to try to keep this on track. John?
Kara Scannell outside the courtroom in New York. Kara, thanks. Keep us posted as that things develop later today. Let's come back to the table with Evan Perez and Elliot Williams. Elliot, from a lawyer perspective first, just explain to the viewer who might not be following this on an hourly basis like we do, that you have an appeal to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, but this is essentially, until that is decided, full speed ahead before Judge Dearie.
Right. The 11th Circuit, where I was a law clerk many years ago, can step in and put the whole proceedings, the entire proceedings on hold and say, you know what, we've got this now, please don't move forward. Until that point, this is with the court that's hearing it, and I think Judge Deary is proceeding as well he should, proceeding as if nothing's been put on hold yet.
And as that plays out, again, I want to read, Caro just mentioned this, Trump publicly has said he declassified these documents. His lawyers have never argued, including in this latest court filing, they have never argued in an official legal document where they are bound by oath that he declassified the document. Judge Deary says, prove it. Prove it. It's a key issue in this case. Please show me the evidence. As I review these documents, prove to me that I should defer to Donald Trump and say he deferred these. Trump's legal team says the draft plan requires the plaintiff to disclose specific information regarding declassification to the court and to the government. The special master process will force the plaintiff to fully and specifically disclose a defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment without such a requirement being in the district court order. The Trump team essentially saying no. Now what happens?
Right. They want the ambiguity of this, ambiguity, by the way, which they alone are creating, right? Because the government isn't even saying necessarily that they're arguing that these are documents that are marked as classified, and that is the violation they're investigating. So the former president is trying to have it both ways. He's trying to say, look, we're not going to say whether these are classified or not, because that might be our defense at a later point if he gets indicted. But at the same time, they want this special master to set aside these documents and to essentially rule what is personal and what isn't.
And to be more direct, if in fact they're not declassified and they put that in a court filing that they were, that's lying to the court. Like you even use the words under oath, John. Not even filing it to the court, making that statement to a federal officer would itself be a crime. And so they have to be maybe they're declassified, I don't know. But all signs seem to suggest that they're not. And
another Trump lawyer in a previous assertion to the Justice Department, another Trump lawyer had written in a letter that all the classified materials had been returned.
Cool, 36
seconds.
seconds. Go back.
That according to the government and according to your eyes, those photographs.
It was only in Wrath of the Lich case.
Where is the thing I was currently watching? This one.
King that we. It was only in Wrath of the
Melior.
Lich King that we in the Bronze Dragon Shrine, along with our future selves, witnessed that, well, Morazond and Nosdumu were in fact the same. A fairly massive moment. At the time, Chromie
Need
didn't
to check and
believe
see
it,
if that's
but
still up
no,
on auction.
He was the enemy.
Or did that sell?
And this all begs the question, why did he turn? We would learn, of course, that Nosdumu was empowered by Aman'Thul, the head of the Titans. He was granted power over the Timeways, but
Oh,
to
that one sold at
prove
least.
the limits of his power, Aman'Thul also showed him his own true death. But I think there's more to all of this.
If it sells,
than
it sells.
we
If not, oh
realized.
well.
First, our bearings. The scope of WoW's lore and Azeroth's place within it has shifted a bit over
wait.
the years. From those early days of defending the world to learning, no, this world is actually very, very important, to learning, oh, it's actually a Titan, then to learning it's the final Titan, and then that maybe it's a bit more than that, or just really quite humongously powerful. So it's with this in mind that we've got to think about the loose thread in Nosdumu's story. This is a thread that Blizzard can weave into the game right now, especially with Bronze Dragonflight having a pretty significant story in this new expansion. This is, in fact, how we can tie together the old gods, the Doomsayers that appeared in Legion, events of the Shadowlands, and a whole bunch more. Like how Melkor's escape through the Door of Night was a looming thing that could maybe happen in the plotline of Tolkien's Legendarium, something similar and altogether rather terrible may well happen to us. What's coming is today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Look, I just can't go on eating processed
Sorry,
food
man,
and
I gotta
waste
skip this.
fantastic,
It drives me
just
nuts.
faffing around. So, back to avert that death. Vision at the link below, where the code BELLULAR65 will get you 65%.
It's not like I'm
So,
fucking
thanks,
sponsored by them.
HelloFresh. Let's go. In the End Time Dungeon, we travel to another timeline, far into the future. One where we fail to stop Deathwing, where hope is utterly dead. There we find him, Morazond. The Titans gave Nosdumu a vision of his own death to humble him. Now we believed that the old gods, very likely N'Zoth, somewhat tricked him into believing that he could subvert that death. So, this timeline exists because he chose to cheat death. If that's his only motive, then actually his dialogue doesn't really line up. Or does it? Well, let's get into that. If he saw his own death, then he would have seen us kill him. And that would mean he would do whatever he could to avert us killing him. So, you know, certainly not fighting us. This is where my efforts broke down, right? Piecing this together. Only for it to fall right into place. Because Chronicle 3 suggests that Morazon's death is rote, that it is going to happen the way that it happens. Okay, so Nosdumu might have seen us kill him, meaning that the End Time Dungeon is his end. Now the thing is, we have the beginning of this character's story, we have the end of this character's story. Therefore, the mystery lies in what we don't have but can infer, what we can figure out. So let's go back into the game.
The End Time. I once called this place. I had not seen by then. I did not know. You hope to what? Stop me here? Change the fate I worked so tirelessly to weave?
That's the first thing that he tells us. That he did indeed call this place the End Time, but clearly he doesn't really think that now. And this kind of confirms two things. First, he saw a timeline in which the End Time happened, thought it was truly the end, but then found out there was something far worse. Or he just quite literally saw this moment as his end time. But either way, something changed his mind, and that something is the true End Time.
You crawl unwitting like a blind, writhing worm towards endless madness and despair. I have witnessed the true End Time. This is a blessing you simply cannot comprehend.
Okay, the true end time. So, this thing that we see in that dungeon, where Void is pretty much consuming all of Azeroth, in comparison to the true end time, that is a blessing. Now, we know that he was manipulated by old gods, almost certainly N'Zoth, who clearly used the trauma of him seeing his own death as an opening. I mean, if we saw the moment of our own death, it would drive us a bit mad, wouldn't it? But clearly, N'Zoth revealed something more, and this is especially clear in a modern context. N'Zoth told us this, and time of course proved him right. Zovaal usurped the functions of death in this big attempt to control the realm of every cosmic force. He wanted to lord over reality, and, as we would find out, stop what was coming. Now, as much as we all sighed at that,
I fucking hate Zovaal.
It is not an absurdity, given what Morazon previously said during the Cataclysm. That the end time that we fought so hard to prevent in that expansion was itself preferable to the true end time, the thing that Nosdormu had seen, what Morazon had seen. Now, what is it that drove him mad, that turned Nosdormu into Morazon? Was it seeing his own death, or was it seeing the true end of things? And the idea that Zovaal would want to stop this, that Void would want to stop this, that actually is completely supported in the lore, right? That this end is so horrid that everyone would want to stop it. That is supported in this line. And even the darkness howls for the light it once despised. Whatever's coming, it is bad on a scale that is hard to fathom. And the death of Morazon, way back in the Cataclysm expansion, pretty much more than half the game's life ago, that is the place where the first seed was planted. Whatever this is, Azeroth, of course, is the key.
This guy just travels around spamming fucking places.
The Void Lords, these
annoying.
mysterious beings, somewhat outside of the universe that we've known of for quite some time, but don't really know a lot of details of. Now, they clearly know something bad is coming. Wishing to use us as instruments of his will, N'Zoth says, "You are indeed the ones I seek, the ones to turn the tide." Blizzard have since teased that just as mortals go somewhere when they die, so too do old gods. So in the Battle for Azeroth expansion, we passed N'Zoth's trial with Unat, we freed him from his prison. I mean, in two ways. We did that by defeating Ashara, and some would even say that by killing him in the end, we just made his essence go back to where it would always go, meaning that he's now free from Azeroth. And then, of course, we defeated Death, which was perhaps the thing Void was afraid of. Nice. Then Light, as shown in Zira, in Legion, and in AU Draenor, it ultimately does have a domineering tendency. You're with them, or you're against them, much like with Order. Of course, they're ostensibly our allies, you know, Aman'Thul and his buds, but they would obliterate a whole world full of sentient, lovely beings without a second thought, as shown with Algalon in Wrath of the Lich King. So yes, obviously Order, too, wants to control Azeroth. So yeah, really everyone wants Azeroth. She is key in almost everybody's plan, and something horrendously bad is coming. So let's make these pieces fall into place, starting with the Doomsayers of Legion. These were just these crazy crackpot theorists who appeared in the streets handing out pamphlets. And they appeared in and around the same time as the Chronicle project began. And that's where we really see Blizzard place all the roots for their cosmology and try to like build out and solidify what ultimately is this new era of Warcraft's lore. As the Legion invasion loomed, they took to the streets. The Doomsayers had a common theme, that Sargeras was good, that he would set us free from torment. And then we get to this pamphlet. The end of all things. The crooked serpent with no eyes is watching from the endless sky. Forked tongues flicker through the black pits in dead stars. The veil between dream and dreamer slides away like skin from bone. And even the darkness howls for the light it once despised. Heavy stuff. Now, of course, I believe this passage describes the end time that Morazon saw. It fits perfectly, I think. But beyond that, there's some more meaning. The Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, right? It's the basis of the Old Testament, and it makes reference to a crooked serpent, which essentially represents uncreation, sort of that which exists but not by God's will. So whatever the ultimate end is, I think this crooked serpent line is certainly referring to it. I mean, serpent with no eyes, like there's very clear imagery. Serpents are in many of the great human stories. So from what we've seen, Azeroth is of course central to the plan of every force. Light and life have seemed friendly, and then there's Order, who we work for but kind of helped take out of action at the end of Legion. There's Fel, who threatens, death and Void's plan, but of course we took them out. There's Void, who he defeated for Zovaal, and then there's Death, who, let's be real, is also a smart cookie. We defeated Death for Void. It's plans within plans, all the way down. Of course, they all involve Azeroth, and per Morazon, the end time where Void wins is still preferable. So Morazon, he was hurt. He was troubled. He was manipulated, betrayed. He was not blessed with knowledge, no. He was cursed with knowledge that nobody is prepared to hold. So here are his final words.
You know not what you have done, Amenthul. What I have seen.
What indeed? I believe that he saw what Zovaal saw. The true end. The worst outcome. Zovaal hated the first one's design, and there are clear critiques, right? Mortal lives, just put through the system, all that suffering and misery. But few have thought of it like Fareem. When Zovaal is defeated, Fareem stumbles upon a horrible realization. Initially, he senses a fracture in the first one's grand design, a fracture caused by Zovaal, imperceptible but potentially catastrophic. Indeed, denizens of the Shadowlands even see the Devourers as a literal sign of the end times. He prays the first one saw Zovaal's final malevolent act, that they've put measures in place. And then a horrible truth dawns on him. Unless their design was never meant to endure. And that is the possibility that haunts me. Okay, that's pretty rough. And all this comes back to one thing, that true end that Morazon spoke of. So, is that end, is that essentially an architected end? Fated? I mean, fate is something that is constantly referenced in the Shadowlands. Threads of fate. And there's quite a lot more, and we went into it in the past. Just think about a few things with Elisande, where Elisande was never able to actually see what we, the players, would do when she scried through all the timelines. And that maybe says there's something special about us. I mean, in the Shadowlands, we're a prophesized savior. And it makes me wonder, just as the Matrix creates the One, are we, or Zovaal, in fact accounted for in a design that is not meant to last? Is it that? Or is there a true threat? Is the Crooked Serpent a more literal opposition to the first ones? Is there one who, like Melkor in Tolkien's work, was banished outside of time? And if Amenthul has this mastery over time and can see future realities, how did he not see any of this coming? Did he not know that giving Nozdummu that knowledge would have consequences? Or did he know? I mean, if the Titans are, as the art style suggests, mere successors to the first ones, then does Aman'Thul know more than he's letting on? I mean, take the Devourers. They are of the Shadowlands' in between, and we're actually told that they were part of the design. They're there to keep balance until something changed. That thing changing caused them to consume, to corrupt, to obliterate. So what changed? If Zoval's betrayal was expected, as Farim worries, and just as, in the works of Tolkien, as Eru Iluvatar planned for Melkor's disharmony in the Song of Creation, then the Devourer's turning would also have been expected. Something bad is coming. I don't know how many expansions away it is. Hopefully many expansions away, and rather than a big bad guy to just pop up and go boo, this is something, you know, significantly more meaningful and also significantly more slow, right? I think we would all want that. But it's interesting to have these sort of looming, interesting threats going on. Take, well, Mass Effect obviously didn't go in the greatest direction, but if you take some of the dark energy plot lines that were being suggested towards the start of the Mass Effect franchise, which of course they pivoted away from, I think, in a less successful fashion, I think those things can be really interesting in a world. And I think it's very relevant for us because Nozdummu turns to Morozond at some point. Many of us, me included, think that he's going to turn in Dragonflight. Now, he's known his own death for a long time. So, is it something else that makes him turn? And knowing his own death is merely an opening? Hard to say. But I think that this video, this is us, you know, placing a firm footing in this area. And I think that this is only going to become more relevant and more important as time flows on. As far as I'm concerned, the biggest risk here is that Blizzard have tied Zoval into a storyline that they established, a very successful potential storyline, in fact, that they established with the end of Cataclysm, that they established with the Doomsayers, that they've hinted at in various different ways, but by putting Zoval there, to a lot of people, that really just, it's a real deal breaker. So let's hope that the Zoval-ish side of things just kind of fades away, and that we, in expansions like Dragonflight, can slowly progress this using the more established and liked storylines. Like Nozdummu, Morozond, and the Infinite Dragonflight, who are all pretty cool. Okay, there you go. That's the big, deep, dark video on the big, looming, scary thing that's going on. I mean, hell, even just now that I'm finished this video, think about that whole prophecy with, you know, the crazy big battle at the very end, you know, Army of the Light. I think Anduin was involved.
Fucking actual chess piece yet.
Illidan was involved in that whole, you know, prophecy or child of shadow and light thing. I mean, is that this battle? Is it like is it Dagorath? The very end, the sort of final climactic battle. It's a storyline that Tolkien perhaps moved away from, but it exists in his notes, I believe, at the very least, which is essentially when Melkor is able to go back through the Door of Night, and the sort of, you know, final big thing happens. I don't know. Maybe Blizzard are going to do something like that. Maybe it's a weird, cyclical universe. Maybe the Titans of us right now are the first ones of whoever comes next. I don't know. Let's not think about it too much and try to have some fun running dungeons and shit. Have a great day. I hope you found this to be an interesting video, and I'll see you next time. Here's a cute fact we noticed. Inside the Stormwind portal room, there are 9 portals. Okay, here's the deal. I know you're here for gaming news, and this is that, but it does get a bit odd when it turns into mergers and acquisitions news. This time, though, it is pretty damn impactful. This is absolutely going to suck for Microsoft and, of course, for Activision Blizzard, and that's why we absolutely have got to get into today's story. Might be a tad dense. I'll try to make it nice and smooth for you, but it certainly is a bloody interesting story, I've got to say that. So we did talk about how the Competition and Mergers Authority of the United Kingdom was taking a little bit of interest in this case, but per Gaming World Observer, they are definitely taking a look. They're actually moving forward with the more in-depth investigation of this merger, of course, on the grounds that it could be anti-competitive, and this comes amid Phil Spencer making more of a public, it's okay, happy statement, whereas Jim Ryan, the head of PlayStation, well, he was pretty damn public about the terms not being good for Sony with Call of Duty. Call of Duty was one of the places where the CMA were, well, particularly concerned. So Microsoft at the time of this had made a bit of a public show of, addressing the concerns with their public statement, but per the sources of the Financial Times, in private, they were actually much less interested in responding. Here's the excerpt. According to people familiar with the matter, Microsoft decided not to cooperate with the CMA this time, because the regulator would probably accept no undertaking from the company. As one competition lawyer put it, it was almost impossible for Microsoft to move away from the in-depth investigation at this stage. So that does mean that the real shit's going to actually happen. Now, of course, Phil Spencer made his public statement about Call of Duty. Jim Ryan said that, who of course is of PlayStation, said that Microsoft had offered them very unfavorable terms. And because of that, we're now thinking that it's likely that regulators are going to take a pretty damn dim view of the info that's being provided to them. And of course, the CMA themselves have actually confirmed this in their announcement, right? Where they said Microsoft informed the CMA that it would not offer undertakings to the CMA, and that because of that, they have made the decision to refer this to the newly established panel of merger experts from the CMA, which means the shit's happening. And we know very much on what grounds it's happening. There are 3 points here. The distribution of games through multi-game subscription services. Now, I think that one is a bit funky because Sony also do have an extremely competitive offering in that space, so that's probably good for Microsoft. If Sony didn't have that, and Microsoft was just muscling in with, kind of gobbling up everything, then perhaps they, wouldn't get away so easily. Also, the supply of cloud gaming services. That's an interesting one. I mean, Microsoft can provide that through Azure. Sony, of course, have been doing a lot of that with, PS Now. Streaming is actually integrated into the new PS Plus, so not sure about that. And then also the manufacture and supply of gaming consoles together with their digital storefronts. So this is kind of an interesting one where that's being clearly articulated as opposed to being a side effect of the previous investigation, based on the idea that losing Call of Duty would in fact, impact the purchase of future PlayStations. And let's make no mistake, just like Sony will now not sell PS5s because people will want to play Skyrim on their Xbox, if they lose Call of Duty, then yeah, a hell of a lot less people will be buying a PlayStation. That is absolutely for damn sure. So, what does this actually mean for the acquisition then? How much of a thorn could this be in the side of Satya Nadella, of Phil Spencer, and of Bobby Kotick? Well, in March 2022, CMA referred a Phase 2 investigation into the acquisition of Avast, the antivirus, by Norton LifeLock. Now, this is just as an example. So this Phase 2 investigation lasted from March until August. It was found that the acquisition would substantially reduce competition in the UK. After that, there was a 3-week public consultation that ended August 24th, where the provisional findings were reviewed and any further objections could be raised. Then that ended the 2nd of September when they announced that they had cleared the merger. So, basically, 6-month delay, right? and that was a $6 billion value thing, whereas this transaction will be a $68.7-ish billion transaction, which is really rather large. Now, one of the good things is that because the CMA are a public body, there's actually a lot of freely available data that we can look into. And this can basically just tell us, when a phase 2 investigation is required, what's the sort of thing that ends up happening. So we can see here the total referred, the number cleared, prohibited, with remedies behaviorally in terms of divestures or cancelled or abandoned. You can see a fair few cancelled or abandoned, and you can also see a fair few being prohibited, actually, to the stage where, well, it's more likely than not that some form of action will actually happen. And to explain what those forms of action are, clearance just means no threat to competition, fire away, do your merger. Prohibited means it cannot proceed because it would be a threat to competition in the UK. That's that. That would be pretty shit news. Behavioral remedies, which is basically just set up a legally binding agreement that will ensure the good state of competition going forward. Divestiture is basically saying, right, you can merge, but you've got to sell off or spin out, some of your assets, basically. And then cancelled or abandoned is just when the parties say, you know what, screw this, we're not doing it anymore. So overall, what you can see is the CMA are not afraid of using their powers. They have actually done so regularly in recent years. So at the very least, expect some form of delay here for Activision Blizzard and for Microsoft, but also potentially something could actually happen. And in terms of what will happen, I think it will be a behavioral solution, because if it was divestiture and they just said, hey, Activision, spin Call of Duty out to the Call of Duty company, Activision would turn around and be like, okay, shit, we've got nothing left. So I think it almost certainly won't be that. But a behavioral thing, that actually could work. I am fairly sure it came out that basically Phil had said, look, you're definitely getting 3 years of Call of Duty, and beyond that, we'll see. That evidently was not good enough for Jim to be happy, right? Jim and the crew over at PlayStation. So imagine some sort of behavioral thing. I would say at least that probably Microsoft's best way to get out of this, and again, this is a layperson's perspective, but I do know that Sony are trying to spin up some sort of free-to-play games. Some of these are in the shooter space from Deviation. We have an upcoming story, though, because it seems like Deviation is going through troubles. If Microsoft could convince that, look, by the time the PS6 rolls around, Sony will have a first-party competitor to Call of Duty, and then, Call of Duty can be our one, perhaps then they could sort of get the clearance. But anything that means yanking Call of Duty whenever Sony don't have, like, their own thing, I just don't think that's really going to be accepted. And as we then zoom out, well, we do have Sony's comment from this, which I think, they're happy. This is fantastic news for Sony. But also we've got the fact that the Federal Trade Commission in America has yet to do their thing in this, and the EU is looming. Apparently Activision and Xbox have been preparing for the EU investigation for a while. Obviously, Microsoft have got in trouble with the EU for anti-competitive things before, so that'll be fun. They've had so pre-notification talks have been ongoing with Brussels regulators since January of this year, and the expectation is that the EU will be applying a similar level of scrutiny to what the UK is doing. So that basically means they need to get ready for the long haul. This is not going to be approved and signed off on quickly. Absolutely not. And as for Sony's comment here, well, this is what they said. By giving Microsoft control of Activision games like Call of Duty, you can see they're drilling in Call of Duty. I think they know that is their strongest point, right? Like two massive games, Call of Duty and FIFA. And I imagine that if Microsoft went and tried to buy Electronic Arts, maybe there'd be a similar discussion here surrounding FIFA. Of course, it's not going to be called FIFA for too much longer, but you get my point. So this deal will have major negative implications for gamers and the future of the gaming industry. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality gaming experience, and we appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting gamers. Well, of course Sony does. I don't think they've looked into their situation with Bungie that much, but certainly, while Destiny 2 is a big game, it's no Call of Duty. Call of Duty truly is absolutely ginormous on the consoles. or perhaps less and less so if they keep on pulling out a Vanguard, but the next installment is going to be Modern Warfare 2 the second, which, yeah, I imagine will actually do quite well. Okay then, so this is all very interesting. I mean, we talked about a while ago how Berkshire Hathaway, which, I mean, if you know the fairly legendary investor Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, that's their company, they were performing, at least the belief was, a bit of merger arbitrage, right? Where the price that Activision Blizzard stock was going for, you know, on the market, where that was actually lower than what the agreed price for, you know, for the merger deal would be. And of course, that would mean a very handsome payday if the merger actually does go through, right? So, you know, there was a lot of bullish sentiment, I think, in the past. A lot of people saying, hey, you know what, this is going to be fine. We'll sail through. It's not really that bad. But now we actually are coming up against some resistance. And if I was to just take a quick look at the markets here now, I don't exactly claim to be able to just, you know, be a magical person and read all of the wisdoms into this chart, but you can certainly see, that the line has went down. Right? You know, it definitely did go down a bit. You know, not humongously. I mean, if you look at this, it's between $76 and $81. If you kind of look at that year to date, I mean, it is a fairly, you know, it is fairly level. I mean, I believe, like, I think we might know why this went from 64 all the way up to 82. Just a hunch. Though even I remember when, you know, with Twitter stock, we, of course, had, you know, a lot of people thinking they were going to do some merger arbitrage whenever Elon Musk announced that he was going to purchase the company for whatever the share price was. And, of course, a lot of that then fell off whenever Musk announced that he was, you know, that he was intending to pull out of the deal. So who knows what it's going to be like for the people who are playing around in the market. Certainly, if somebody went, you know, very bullish on Twitter being sold soon and Activision Blizzard being sold soon, then maybe things aren't exactly panning out how they would have expected. That's basically the situation, okay? I don't really know what this is going to mean. I do have a suspicion that it will be a behavioral agreement, though. It was actually quite good. I learned a lot going through the doc that, you know, that Connor and our team prepared for both of us today. And I guess that can maybe give us an understanding of what could happen. I think one of those behavioral things where they just end up, you know, it's not a gentleman's handshake, it is legally bound that Call of Duty will be protected, be safe. I think that's the most likely thing, because ultimately for Microsoft, I mean, sure, it would be nice they could do something with Call of Duty. I don't think they ever had a realistic expectation of doing something really aggressive with Call of Duty anytime soon. My personal suspicion is that at most, they want to do for, you know, the next generation of consoles, they want Call of Duty to be theirs. And I think they hope that they can just get away with it. So, if they sign an agreement that says for 6 years there's Call of Duty in PlayStation, I think for Sony, that does kind of suck, because they know there is a ticking time bomb. But for Microsoft, that's still good, because they know that that is a major play that they can make whenever the next console generation starts. And as for Sony, they will just have to hope that they've got something ready in time. And even that could be in jeopardy, as apparently at Deviation Games, there have been a lot of staff departures amid, well, some rumors and murmurings. We'll get into that later next week, though. So that's it for today's video. Let me know, I suppose, what you think. It's kind of hard to tell how this could really impact any of us. Though at least for some of us, the idea that maybe Blizzard could operate with a more long-term outlook instead of quarterly get the money in, some of us think that could be good for the Blizzard games. There's obviously bigger things at play. Anyway, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
Guys,
So I
I'm
didn't see
big.
you, bro.
My
You left
turn
it.
to
Nothing.
be fast.
Wow.
Boom.
And I hope no one takes that gift away
Oh
from
my
you.
god, another zoomer.
No, you're fast beat up. I hear a lot of voices. It's not even English anymore.
Safe down here. I think I just got doused.
still
I think I
feel
just got doused.
You should still feel
Oh my
bad.
god.
What? Yeah.
Look at that zoomer go.
I think I'm being doused. This way towards V-Town. Victory Town this
Now
way.
you guys are ready.
Doused,
My
not
God, your
doused.
kids are all grown up.
Oh, I've grown a little bit, you know.
No, but the kids are getting huge. It's so good to see them.
They're like
I think they don't need the carrier
they're
anymore.
graduating this year.
He's doing something to us. Mindy, use your children as a bodyguard protection.
Mindy, give me a name.
I must go. Oh my god. Oh my god. I think I heard shouldn't have heard. Horket reporting.
You're
Horket.
good. You're good.
What
Chill.
the
As long as
fuck?
you're
I didn't even
Sheriff. That's our sheriff.
Cruz?
Let Horket say what he saw.
Did you blackmail
No,
Bonnie?
Horket's dead.
No,
Horket's
I
dead.
have my download shit up.
Let's just hear from Horket real fast. Horket?
Horket's dead!
Horket, you really gotta tell us what happened.
Yeah, Horket, you gotta talk to us.
You got the megaphone.
Well, it's not Cruz or Platty who did this.
All right, well,
Scotty's
I want to
chill.
say
Scotty,
the
can
people
have
that I
a high
do
five for this meeting?
know Platty interacted with was me and Kara, but I know that I'm good. I don't know if he interacted with other people though, so.
I hate people. I'm over here farming stuff for it, and they just want to run up and fucking take it because they're shitbags. Can't stay to their own side or go to a different island. It's like right there after they get done killing it all. Said they just want to sit there and try to steal tags.
Platty, you tell Horket and tell us. Here. Oh! Oh, jeez.
We just lost our vigilation.
That was our Vigi. That was our Vigi.
That was our Vigi?
Peace.
Like Vigi games?
I think
Like video
he
games?
just tried to shoot me as blackmail.
Why you? Wait, why you?
Because I was there with
Oh,
him
hey,
and Specimen.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we said we were cool verbal blackmailer.
Chilled sidebar?
Yeah, I guess so.
Chilled sidebar?
Mindy! Oh my word, you know?
Hey, Scotty.
Sidebar?
Yeah. What the fuck? How was she
hearsay.
on here already? Just blackmail me normally, okay? I don't want to be verbally blackmailed.
I'm the good guy with the gun.
Wait, then how did Z just die? Or do you mean you'll shoot him in game is what you meant when you said give me a name. Then shoot Cruz. She's 100% evil. Just give me such bad vibes.
Okay, then I will.
Yeah, I think you should.
Then I will. Where is she?
You really should. I don't know. I'm not her keeper. I called her the
Well,
devil
then
last
I
game.
wanna
Sister.
find
Oh,
her.
there she is.
Really
Cruz, what the fuck?
Yo, I'm gonna get
Cruz.
performance anxiety doing my task. Don't look at me.
Cruz.
What?
Oh, mama!
What?
I'd like to.
I get what body.
I want everybody to know that we're not lovers, but Mindy is my mom now.
I
I've adopted him, yes.
I saw a Cruz just kill Kara.
Okay, so there's two cruises then.
Well, but here's the
'Cause
thing,
I'm
Cruz. It's you
mid-task.
talking in tree. There's no other Cruz. It's you, and it's
I'm
almost below us.
task though, you dirty bitch. Don't you fucking lie to me. It's time to go, you fucking boomer.
You
don't
haven't.
get to do this to
There's
me.
somebody else in there.
No.
There's somebody else.
There is. It's me in my task doing the slide ball. I'm getting lifted. I'm getting stop it.
I'm just
I can't
before
tell.
you over. Let me get a couple of words in. There's another person.
You got enough then. You got a fake accusation.
There's another person in there. Can they out themselves? They can tell us what they saw. There's one other person in there.
In the tree?
The tree room in O2 and where the water wheels they came
It's
from.
either Himmy or Pasta.
Can they?
I'm in O2, but I'm not tree. I'm at the garbage.
You fucking Cruz.
I said I'm at the garbage. I said I'm at the garbage.
Okay.
I don't think it's Cruz.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
A mare?
I think you got me.
Cruz is off her meds. She's insane. She's crazy. She's out of control. The day is upon us, Internet. Last year, Tortellini was released as a plushie, and he's sold out in a few days. Today, Rexar launches as a plushie, and you can pick one up at U2's. There'll be a link in the description. Thank you for supporting us, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. My internet took a shit.
Very unfortunate.
Scotty, can we talk, Scotty?
Yeah.
Scotty, come here.
You gotta protect me from Z next.
For the glitch? Glitch, find me. Oh, yeah. Look at your little babies. Are you the glitch?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like this is such, like, I've never done a drug deal before. I'm a little nervous. This is my first time.
Okay.
See, that's my identification.
Okay, I want to, like,
I need to call her. I'm
transport
gonna
you
turn off stream for a minute.
with
Oh,
the person you transform as.
nope. I think she got it.
God,
I don't like y'all.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. This has been. But you're
What?
straight up a good guy, and like,
I am.
But morally speaking,
But I want to see it happen.
you get one, and then I have to dissipate. You know, you get to choose. Like, you know, it's like a choose.
Hi. But he dead.
This is
he's dead.
He was actually asking Horkett to protect before this happened. He's like,
No, don't worry, dude. I actually saw Z do this.
Wait, no. But I was about to say that's exactly. That's impossible. I wouldn't say impossible because what Scotty said to Horkett.
That's impossible, Cruz. That's impossible.
Nope, dude, Z's lying. He's a dirty liar, dude.
Yeah, but Cruz, literally, before even Z got there, Horkett said to Scotty said to Horkett, "You have to protect me before Z kills me again." Without even Z being there, and now you're telling me the prophecy came true.
I'm telling you the prophecy came true.
Prophecy?
He literally said it.
I wanted to talk to Scotty because I'm trying to do, like, you know, let's say role combining, you know what I mean? But
I thought that was not the word I thought there was.
Feels like a swap and play.
A what?
I can confirm
Not an
Cruz
emoji.
is not an exy.
Okay,
No,
but the prophecy.
It feels like a swap and play.
I caught a killer and I just want him out.
So why did you button instead of report the body?
I thought it was the safer option. You were standing by the body, dude. Why would I go click it?
After that.
And how did Scotty know he was gonna get murdered by Z again?
Cruz, the fuck?
The prophecy.
I mean, Cruz, I actually believe that you didn't kill this body, but I don't know.
Oh, I'm glad you think I didn't kill this body, Platty.
Hey, yo,
Why is
dude,
he
hey,
really quiet?
thumbs
Is he
up,
Jester?
Cruz. Cruz, thumbs up.
Wait, is he just being like super
thumbs
quiet
up.
and just taking the Jester win right now?
I feel like you gave me a thumbs down,
You'd
Platty.
have to shoot him then, Horkett, as a jester.
I've said it's literally impossible. That's all I said. That's my defense.
And I find it hard to believe the prophecy came true.
Timid, considering you might die.
Okay, that's not what I thought you were gonna do there. God damn it.
Did anyone catch her last words?
That was funny.
I cannot change.
I did. I saw all
Find me.
I'm gonna crit you, Z. That's what she
Uno.
said.
Let's do it.
Uno,
Let's do it.
Uno.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I don't know what that was about.
I don't know what the hell that was about. So
Okay,
this is gonna be
but I want it to be like amongst a bunch of people.
amongst. Okay. All right. So we're gonna have to set up the kind of the whole little plan thing where I will have to be transformed already into them, and you're gonna have your finger
Yeah,
on the button.
yeah. I bet Horkett would be around a lot of people.
Okay. Wait.
Okay, don't
You're
do it.
sending me to him.
Yes. No.
Oh,
no.
this is
I'm
different.
No, I'm replacing you with Horkett.
Oh my God. This is very different.
Yeah.
I thought you were just bringing me to. Oh, this is so different. Okay. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll change.
I was gonna wait until the lights are back on.
Okay, good idea. Yeah, because usually they just transport someone down here, then they murder in front of them. But this, you actually,
no.
you want me
I
to
don't
be
want
like,
you to murder people. I want you to just like take someone's place and then like.
Okay, yeah, and try and blend in like a psychopath. Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get to just wear his skin.
No, I don't want you to kill people. I want you to just
Okay.
like.
Now this can be a little weird if Horkett
Juice here. Oh shit.
Uh-oh. I told you he's sus.
Body
Oh, body's
No,
found.
Dad, let's go.
Bloody sus. Yeah, Button Berry.
You get all your tasks done. Crazy.
Let me tell you something. It's definitely not Horkett.
Definitely not fish.
okay.
I mean, technically, there's no bodies, so it. You know.
All right, shit. Well, then we know for sure it's not him.
Okay, right.
We're all innocent. Let's go home.
Yeah,
Gonna be real. I was just kind of like standing in a location for a while, and I was like, something's not right. These lights aren't turning on. So here's the thing, actually.
if you're with somebody and you're off in the distance, you don't even have to say. They probably might not be the killer because it seems like the killers were hanging out at the lights, ready to take people out.
Oh, and then everyone just decided not to go to lights.
No, really, everybody really didn't want to go to lights. This is actually, I'm not.
Good thing we didn't go there, Orchid.
Pasta
Not at the meeting. This is not a meeting room table quest, by the way. This is Buttonberry.
But I'm not afraid of the dark.
I thought about it.
Safe Buttonberry, Putty. Very safe
It's a
Buttonberry.
mobile
Thank you,
button.
thank you.
Yeah.
I told Z and Mindy, that you're sus, Platy. I'm really.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I told Cara that you're
That's all I
sus as
got.
well, Platy. So I'm sorry.
Let's go, bro.
Okay.
Ty's got like 3 executioners in this game.
Yeah, dude. I'm just calling in to check to see how you guys are. You're fucking sus. That's how we are, buddy.
Thanks for helping us, you piece of shit.
Okay.
All right, let's turn the lights on. Come on, guys.
No, I
Turn the
want
lights on.
this.
I can't wait to get these lights back on. Where they're
Not that way,
definitely.
Can I seriously just get 2 fur?
Okay, by God. Are you able to actually do it this round? Because now it glitches.
Oh, let me check. 15 seconds. I can check.
Shit.
I thought it was always the second round.
I'm Horky here.
Let me check.
Hey, Horky.
I can only do you and pasta.
Shit. All right, you want me to become pasta?
All right.
Or button. That's too. Yeah, nice day.
Definitely,
Oh,
there's
jeez.
definitely some confusion by the left. What? Oh.
No, pasta exploded on me.
Fishburger, Z, or
This was.
Himmy. What the fuck? I'm Platy, sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're
It's
good.
not me,
Jill
Platy.
can vouch. I
Z.
could not
We're all
do
in
pasta.
Cara in this scenario.
So
Y'all
so
like
pasta
Actually,
exploded.
chilled, like,
Now, Chilled and Car have been
we were
grouped together
all
the whole
together,
game.
like,
No, she
I
100%
think-
exploded.
She did.
I think these guys were lovers because they were hanging out together the last round.
So they're hanging out.
It could be Mindy that got
Cara and
killed.
Chill been hanging out the whole game though.
We
Because
have.
first round I was AFK.
We have, yes.
Yes.
And I ran over to cameras and saw they were just hanging out there
But
having a little
did
powwow.
Mindy
I decided to
just
leave
die
it alone.
like 3
I can
Look,
confirm that pasta did just explode
They-
on top of Cara.
They died around the same
Wow.
time.
Oh,
I
You guys
Okay,
like
then they must be
GA
lovers.
killer or something?
I don't know where Mindy died, but pasta just exploded randomly.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Probably
guys.
somewhere nearby.
Uh,
Himmy,
I
are
am
you near
100% good,
them
Himmy.
at all? Cara and Chilled?
No, I saw Chill jet out from above comms at me, and I went, "Oh!"
That's
Oh.
fair.
Like
That's
that,
very
huh?
fair. Very
Oh my
factual,
God.
even.
That's
can't
all I
argue.
got.
Facts.
Also,
Me
if
and
I
Cara
killed
were
pasta,
me and
why
Cara were
would
top
I
left
report
reactor.
this?
What did I say the other day, Chilled?
What did you say?
Actually, or what did
Anyway, I'm
I say?
skipping.
Who was
Nah,
who was
fuck
the
it.
other that died?
Mindy.
Are we
At the
skipping?
same
Are
time.
we
Who's with
Exactly the
Mindy?
same
Oh,
time.
fuck's sake.
Fuck this tiger fur.
Oh, damn, what the fuck?
You need to vote someone out there, but it's whatever.
Do a little
Wait, what the fuck? Are you swapper lovers?
Whoa.
Who?
Who's swapping lovers?
I'd like to just give a little situation, a little sit rep, if possible, about the whole situation. So it went really well according to plan because they must have been talking, and Mindy was in a task. And